I have a lot to say about this recent chapter of Eden Zero, chapter 43, the smell of money, because just kind of getting off on things really quickly, Eden Zero, it's been a fun start, but nothing has been too crazy outside of, just really interesting designs, and you have this guy who's done fantasy his entire career, now doing a sci-fi and kind of combining the two, and that's been a lot of fun. I really like seeing all the cool designs he's put out there, just like planets in general. That's been good stuff. But if you've read his other two series, Rave Master and Fairy Tale, in a very similar fashion, the first piece of the story I would really kind of consider as an introductory piece. Until the fight with Shuda on top of his ship base, and Natsu's fight with Gadgil during the Phantom Lord arc, both series were kind of in this, they were just getting you to, as the reader, to really understand the world, understand the characters that you're going to be, seeing everything through the, the main cast, the way that the characters' abilities work and whatnot. But once they got to that first, big piece of the story, kind of big serious arc, I think that's when the series really picked up. I think a lot of people can agree with that whole arc for Rave Master, Haru getting Sylpharion, and the Phantom Lord arc for Fairy Tail were both just huge pick up the pace pieces of the series. And I think that's going to be what the situation is again with Eden Zero, because so far we've had some really cool parts. Obviously, I've said Jin is still my favorite design character we got thus far in the story, but Drakken Joe is definitely the most interesting character, and the reason that is so I've read I think every single product that HIRO Mashima's put out. I've read all his one shots. I've read his his short stories, including the ones like Monster Soul, which completely underrated and has so much potential for something only 2 volumes. As the main character who's named for Fall as his seasonal main characters, and yet he's not really known to that many people. And to his Monster Hunter story, which actually had the original Shiki, who I think he decided to make this one Shiki because I don't think he owns the rights to that one, because that one was done for Capcom under Monster Hunter. But out of everything, I really just, I've seen a lot of his characters, obviously as somebody who's read all his works, but Drakken Joe holds a very new sense of style because he doesn't come off as evil, and that's the thing about him that I'm very interested in. He's done a lot of characters, very cool. He's done a lot of really basic villains that are still really cool to see at. Someone like Zero from the Erasion Seis arc, who just kind of this destruction, wants to fight type guy, but he's still really cool in both design, and he was fun to watch do stuff. To somebody as complicated as Lucia Raregroove from Wraith Master or Zarev Dragneel from Fairy Tail. Here, though, Drakken Joe, he doesn't come off as evil, he doesn't come off as misunderstood, he doesn't come off as some guy with some grand plan of got all these different things connected, of what he sees as pretty much his ideal of how things go. Again, you can look at all his other villains. He's had a lot of different kinds. Drakken Joe just seems like a businessman. He just seems like he's in it for profit. He's in it for building an empire, not from I want world domination. He's just in it to be successful, and I think that's really interesting. And just throughout this entire chapter, so obviously I've started out, it's already 4 minutes in, and I've just talked in general about HIRO Mashima, and one of the reasons I'm really excited about this, because this character alone, I've had a lot of hype for, and just kind of speculating around him, and it seems my speculations are exactly going to be dead on for his character. He's not going to come off as some super evil villain, like I said, or somebody who's trying to do something good, and we just don't really understand, some skewed kind of view on reality in the situation. He's just seemingly a businessman, a criminal kingpin in space, and I think that's going to be really cool. So, first off, we get the first, really good look at his design. I really love that hairstyle, just the way it's drawn. That was used on Azuma's hair back in Fairy Tail, but I thought that was such an underused design. I just think it looks cool just looking, it's just such a weirdly appealing design of that strange, rough, cross-cut style of shading. But Obviously, he is like dealing with some guy that owes him money. He owes him, I think he borrowed, what was it, like 2 or 3 million Gree being their world's currency. This guy, Mary Morrison, and Drakken Joe, he seems like one of these guys, again, a criminal kingpin, a loan shark. We saw like other parts inside his space station, and he's got all these banks and places to get loans. And you can really tell, again, very money orientated. So again, he seems like one of those guys you completely just decide that you're going to borrow money from him or borrow something from him, get a favor from him. You pay him back and return, whatever he did for you in kind, and he's probably going to be okay with you, because we see a good example of this, because the hacker spider guy that, from the previous arc shows up. He's kind of like barges into Drakken Joe's office, and he seems very annoyed by it. This dude's interrupting him trying to deal with somebody he sees as, trying to cheap out on getting him his money back when he's supposed to get it back. And he seems very annoyed by that. And he has this really cool line in there when he says, you always return things you borrow. That's common sense. And one thing I'm really curious about, just kind of like thinking at it, is HIRO MASHIMA is a huge, like, his favorite things, his favorite manga is Berserk, his favorite anime is Code Geass, and his favorite TV show is Game of Thrones. And there's a good couple Game of Thrones bits you see near the second half of the Alvarez arc in Fairy Tail. And I'm wondering if he took some parts, if you've seen Game of Thrones, you know how the Lannisters are. The Lannisters always repay their debts, and they're very much on, getting it back if you owe them as well. And I'm wondering if he took, at least the TV show, I'm not going to count the books, I haven't read the books. I doubt he has either. I don't think he has the time. But I'm wondering if he took any inspiration from that from the Lannisters, who are very business and honor-orientated, and brought it here for Drakken Joe. And not only that, I just think it's a really good additional piece to add onto this guy, and the way his layout has been that I've been talking about, of him being a businessman over anything else. Because again, he seems like one of these guys, he won't exist as a villain throughout the series. He'll be someone who, like, he'll be on whichever side he can make profit. Like, he could be on the side with Shiki and everyone, and the only thing they would have to worry about is if he ends up getting a better deal along the line that would involve betraying them. As long as they know that he's getting a good deal out of being on their side, they probably wouldn't have to worry about having any shenanigans going from his side of things. And again, he was very brutal, and I really like this part because it's, again, says a lot about his character. It says a ton about how he operates in this chapter. And this chapter was mainly focused on him, and that's one of the reasons I was really excited for this chapter, because the title said a lot like it was going to be about him, and it seemed to be about it as moving in, and just kept getting heavier and heavier over pretty much depicting his character. And he's talking to the guy who owes him money, and the guy's just like, I'm going to pay you back, I'm going to pay you back. He's like, of course you are. Of course you're going to pay me back. I know you're going to pay me back in one way or the other. And then, he's like talking to, I don't remember what this guy's name is, but his like assistant, the little snail guy. And he's just like, hey, this guy's an artist of some kind. He draws or whatever. And he's like, yeah. And so he's like, okay, this guy's not going to need his teeth then. After using his alchemy-based ether gear, because we already know Alchemist of Darkness, he changes metal, he changes glass into metal, and the dude's like slams his back of the head into the ground, which is probably really painful, because that floor on a spaceship, it's probably either going to be some form of stone in that building he's got, or metal, and it was enough to like crack the ground too, so it probably really hurt. And then furthermore, Drakken Joe just kicks the dude at the bottom of the jaw and shatters the bottle, which is metal at that point, cracks up this dude's teeth, blood all over his mouth, his jaw is just like split open. And Hacker Spider in the back, he's just gonna like, yeah, kill this guy, screw this guy. He's just kind of being this annoying, like, hype guy. He's coming off as just an overly annoying, like, kind of third wheel. I mean, obviously there's more than 3 of them in Drakken Joe's crew, but you know what I mean. And Drakken Joe's like, why'd I kill him? If I kill him, I'm not going to get my money back. And this dude borrowed money from me. He owes me money. And he seemingly is not getting in time doing his job, so I could sell him off to be a lab rat for medical purposes. And and they can pay me for sending this pretty much flesh dummy, or he can go mine coal, or I could sell him into slavery to be like a toy for some old hag. And again, he doesn't he also has a kind of like a crude personality, because he's like his like assistant guy, he's like PR dude as well. It kind of seems like he just is like, hey, sir, because he also calls him president. So obviously, again, because of his he owns companies, we know that from the banks and stuff, and that we saw outside his office on his spaceship. He's like, what you could say might insult different races. He says they're discriminatory of the planet Pygmoria. And Drakken Joe's like, oh yeah, your wife's one of those big ugly creatures like that. And he's just like, stop, please. You can tell he's very crude. And I wonder if he's going to be one of those characters, because obviously he's got this guy to tell him where he's saying stuff that could ruin his image, is that in public, like public speaking, or just like out in the open where there might be cameras or mass amounts of people, he might have more of a refined, very, very much like, again, PR persona, where he just comes off as a nice guy, and then behind the scenes you see this of him, very criminal, Kingpin-esque thing you'd see you see in a lot of series. And I think one of my favorite ones, even though again I'm not a Marvel guy, but I really like the Daredevil TV show purely because of the villains, and I really liked Kingpin and Wilson Fisk, how he was depicted. Obviously, I'm not going to talk about the comic books. I don't read the comic books. I know he was amazing in that show, but as it was going on, we end up getting more of his crew, and they're talking about the losses they experienced on Gilst. Seth Anderson, this cool like skeletal robotic cowboy dude who's really, really cool looking. Diego Reyes, his design, not too much for me. And then Maria Slime as this the chick who grew her legs. She's gonna be more of a all-around package chick from what I'm guessing, because she seems like she's gonna be vicious, but also very just nice to look at. She's just like erotic, like got her tongue out eating candy in her like skin tight suit, and she's just like talking about them going to find a new planet because they lost so many business partners on Gilst when the chronophage attacked, and probably lots of parts of their business in general. And during that, his only response is going to this dealing with these guys that the hacker spider guy is talking to me about, going to make me money. And again, I like the interaction he had, because he seemed annoyed with the dude at first that he came in. And the hacker spider guy's like, you said that we were cool after I fixed your computer. And he's like, oh, okay, I don't remember saying that, but it sounds like, it seems likely for him. And I thought that was really cool, because he was mad at the dude. He was just like pissed, like, what the fuck are you doing in my office? I'm working here. But then he, in his mind, when the guy said, I did this for you, and you said, we'd be cool for all. In his mind, I think when you kind of compare it to like the way he acted, that he's like, oh, this guy did something for me, so obviously I'm going to do something for him. And obviously, bring him in, talking to him, he's like, okay, cool. He seems very much like a trade for a trade guy, again, very business oriented, which I think is really cool for him. I thought that was a really cool moment as well. Just very character telling. He pissed off this dude, is barging into his office. He's annoying. He just won't shut up. But at the same time, he's like, he did something for me, so whatever, it's cool. But then afterwards, this is exactly as I laid out during the chapter, so you can go back and look at it. I knew this was going to happen to the dude, because he goes back, he explains the situation, and I knew this was going to happen, giving off of Hacker Spider. That when we see Drakken Joe talking to him, they're going over the whole thing, and they're talking about, like, he doesn't even seem to really know the Demon King. The manager guy seems to kind of like had an idea of him, because they're talking about Eden Zero. And Drakken Joe, I knew this was going to happen. He's talking about how, what's wrong with these guys? Just because like they kicked your ass and sent you running, they're somehow an issue that I got to take care of. And he seemed kind of playful in his facial expressions for that. But then it was just like, I knew this was going to happen, because he says like, you used my name and then lost and are now coming to me. You used my name without my permission. And I knew it was going to happen, because again, very business orientated. His image is everything to him as a businessman, especially, his name is just how he is to the public is very important to him, and how he makes his money. And I knew that was going to piss him off. And it, again, doesn't surprise me that he had the skeletal robot cowboy Seth do as he did. And I thought this was funny, because it was both cool and it made me laugh at the same time. Is you see Seth like reach for his gun, and then in the next panel he's reholstering it. You don't even see it leave the holster, and Maria and Diego are just like, damn, fast as always, very impressive. And Hacker Spider's like, what do you do? And then just a second later, there's just this blood spurt out of his head, and they're like, he can shoot someone so fast they can't even tell what happened. And it was just like, it was badass, but at the same time, he just Omae Wamo Shinderu'd somebody with a gun, which is super badass. Anytime you have one of those feats where it's like, you have someone kill another character that's at a speed where they have absolutely no idea what happened, and it's like they're still talking and stuff. Like, it's like kind of like that classic like two swordsmen clash, and then you don't see what happens afterwards. But it's more of that one's being like dramatized, where this is just like an emphasis on like badass speed, which is just so cool. Meanwhile, he's just Drakken Joe, just like, whatever, screw that guy, he's annoying, he's not gonna make me any money, I don't have time for him, pissing me off. But Edith Zero, you know, knowing this famous ship, that might get him some money. And the rest of the chapter I kind of went through really fast. There's some, you know, the four shining stars, you know, they want to get there, they want to find Valkyrie and figure out what to do there. And Shiki actually, once they're like talking about it, they're kind of able to figure out the guildmaster of the Shooting Starlight is seemingly got some suspicious acts for him, because they think he's in ties with Eliga, who is, you know, stealing all these beekeepers. Obviously, he was able to find information on them, was able to keep track of them and capture them. So there was information clearly being put out on their side, and they're just like, whatever, we don't want to deal with this. Whatever, we don't want to get too involved in this. And Shiki just like, no, he's messy. He's the reason why Rebecca went through all that. He's the reason why Sister got captured for years on Gilst. I got a problem with him. We're gonna go do something about it. Meanwhile, we just have this kind of nice setup while we're all kind of like figuring out what exactly they're going to do, where exactly they're going to go, and how they're going to find Valkyrie. And they actually they're going to pretty much like a famous fortune teller apparently knows all past, present, and future on the planet Mildian, which planet look-alike. The planet like looks so cool with its cool like rings that are gears and, you know, time and everything. And Mildian, if you don't know anything about HIRO MASHIMA, you're just reading this and you think Mildian might seem suspicious. Mildian is one of the ongoing things he's been putting in all of his major series. It was first the city of mages and wizards back in Eden Zero, in Ravemaster that protected time. That's, you know, where Sieg Hart was from, and then in Fairy Tail, Mildian was both the city of where Zareth studied magic. He had his research grant there and made like the inventions like the Eclipse Door and the Tower of Heaven, you know, the R system. And it was also where Damari was from. Mildian obviously being time related, and all HIRO MASHIMA's works. That's where Kronos, the god of time, was being held, and we're, you know, Damaria as a descendant of like the clan related to them is why she was able to have the god of time as her god's soul takeover. And then the last thing in the chapter, which wasn't exciting on the reveal, like I saw this coming. I saw that there was probably some as a criminal, like Drakken Joe, and probably going to have a lot of connections and tie-ins through, you know, money and business, is actually in direct association with Noah Glenfield, the leader or the guildmaster of the Shooting Starlight guild. And the one thing I really want to again point out, like the clear difference of guilds between like Fairy Tail and Eden Zero. Guilds in Fairy Tail are more like your crews. You know, it's like a much more of like a family business kind of way. You're much more orientated there versus Eden Zero, where it's literally just like an info hub. You're literally just there. It's like a shopping mall that you can get jobs at a lot of the time. And it doesn't surprise me that the leader of it seems more for business than anything else. And he's in direct like communications with Drakken Joe, who's, you know, this big criminal kingpin. And it doesn't surprise me that Drakken Joe has, you know, very important figures like that in his pocket. It just seems like what you'd expect from a huge business-based criminal. Very interesting. Again, like his reveal, Noah Glenfield, I was like, okay, whatever. He isn't what interests me. It's the fact that Drakken Joe has relations with him. Who else does Drakken Joe know and being able to like on call like get stuff from him? Because he's probably got dirt on all these people. He's got business relations with him. He's got a past of of transactions with them. He's probably got so much, and I think I'm hoping out of the Erasion Says Galactica, I want Drakken Joe to be the longest running because I think that he holds the most potential. Obviously, we've only seen one of them. The only other one that I can hypothesize is maybe that Valkyrie is one of the Erasion Says Galactica. But Drakken Joe, there's so much potential with his character, just from the fact that he doesn't come off, doesn't seem like a good guy or a bad guy. He seems like whatever is most convenient for him to make profit off of is what side he will be on. And that's where I think he will just be a wild card character in so many ways. Like, literally, it could be in an arc where they're in a big battle and they're getting in the Eden Zero crew is getting screwed over and they don't know what to do, and they mentioned something about finding, I don't know, something along their quest that might lead to treasure or something, like some untold treasure, and then bam, you have Drakken Joe. Maybe he was on the other side. He switches sides because he's like, I've heard of that place. I can, I know how valuable the items there are or whatever, and siding with you guys, clearly I'll make more money out of, so screw you other guys, I'm switching sides. It seems very likely of what we might get out of this guy, and that's why I'm stoked to see what we're going to get from him, and especially just, I really want to see how HIRO MASHIMA writes a character of this style, because, again, he's done a lot of different villains, but I haven't seen anything of him, like this for him to go at, and that's one of the reasons I'm also very excited for. Again, other than that, drop a comment below on what you think about this. This is much longer than my normal Eden Zero videos. Obviously, I had a lot more to talk about because I just really wanted to talk about Drakken Joe. I've been waiting a while for this. I've been very excited for his character, and I'm hoping other people are as well. So tell me in the comment section below and what you think about this, how you think this is going to progress. Again, I'm very excited for his character in general. He could easily surpass Jin in terms of my favorite at the moment, and I look forward to seeing how he plays out in this arc. But I really appreciate if you would, again, comment below, thumbs up the video, befriend the like button and subscribe button, and check out my other videos. But other than that, I appreciate everyone who's already subscribed, and I thank you all for listening.